This is us, looking back, moving forward. That's our theme for this 2018 convention. And I know some of you have asked, why did we steal the title of an Emmy award-winning TV drama? Well, I would just say because it's good. And as I said to you at the Bishop's Leadership Conference, I believe in the case method, copy and steal everything. But you can, of course, when you can. And that title seemed to fit for us as a diocese and a church, the body of Christ, and us as a country, a society, a world. Gary Wills, in his book, Certain Trumpets, which was about leadership, but even more about what it is to be a good and conscientious follower, the art and demand of that, which he, of course, asserts we have lost, once powerfully remarked about any organization, but certainly about any church, country, or world, show me your leader, and you have bared your soul. Show me your leader, and you have bared your soul. It's easy to blame leaders of anything, the local Rotary Club, the church, the country, and yet what is good or what is not as good is in those leaders is often the result of our followership. When I watch what is happening around us on a daily basis, like many of you, I want to distance myself from it, kind of broke it off as something happening outside of me. But the reality is, just as our theme suggests, this is us. At least right now, this is us. This is what we have become. This is what we are. As we participated in getting it to this place, it's our call and responsibility to take it wherever we feel it needs to go. That's what good followers do. In essence, that is how followers are leaders. Following is not a passive thing. We are not powerless. For now, these 2 days, and continuing in the year to come for me and you, we're going to focus on this thing we share, this church we make and hold and steward together, that we lead and follow. We call it the diocese. It's a confusing concept, and one that has been in debate for as long as the church has used the term. I find myself constantly reminding people that the diocese is not the house on Capitol Hill, where my office is, and where most of the diocesan staff work. That's the office of the bishop, part of the diocese. We, all of us, every congregation in every town, every person who claims the Episcopal tradition, that is the diocese. We have to keep working on that. And while I'm at it, and I have a microphone, please, let's stop using the term the national church. Please. The Episcopal Church is not a national church. We are no longer the Episcopal Church USA, ACUSA. I'm so glad that one's gone. I always wanted to say that someday after that. We are an international church. When we call ourselves a national church, we are writing off the Episcopalians in Colombia, Haiti, Taiwan, Honduras, Ecuador, Venezuela, Micronesia, and the Dominican Republic. And those bishops from those places remind us in the House of Bishops every time the term is used. And it's used far too often still in the House of Bishops. This is us. We are an international church, not a national one. I also like the thing, this is us, because packed into those 3 little words is both declaration and indictment. It's the same time both, a description and a challenge. And when we stop at the moment in time, as we do today, hopefully in this next year, and say, this is us, we do well to look back at what got us to this point, hopefully for the good, but also where we went wrong. I've been doing that, looking back. When I look back, I see in the mirror a young bishop who ain't so young anymore. And one that was far more frightened and stressed than he was wont to let on. In our beginning, that stress and fear made me make some mistakes. I'm still making them. There's a lot of the on-the-job training in this gig, and I learned a lot in those first few years. I've told you the story before of the usher dutifully doing his job at my consecration in Bellevue. I decided to walk to the event with my owl already on, straight down the streets of Bellevue. right into Eisenhower Center. When I got to the lobby and was making my way through it, that usher came to me and said, "Son, all the acolytes are meeting up in room 32B." And I just told him, I'll get up there as quickly as I can. I often long for those days now. When I look back, I see a diocese that seemed a bit lost, somewhat fragmented, where trust needed to be built again. I sensed a great deal of fear about the future in a thing called the nun zone, a place where it seemed the church was becoming more and more irrelevant. There was a huge amount of concern for finances and for the fact that we were an aging church. A reporter asked me just a few days after the election what I hoped for this diocese. I told him I hoped for a diocese that was healthy, connected, growing, and one that would be looked to by others in the Episcopal Church as a model for the church of the future. I'm not sure we're there yet, but I do believe we made some significant steps toward it. The College for Congregational Development, now a decade ago, has had a significant impact on our collective life in this diocese, but even more on the Episcopal Church. When our presiding bishop visited this past June, this was one of the very specific requests he had to see it in action. Many dioceses across the Episcopal Church have come to the college and have taken it back, adopted this model, and still today, new dioceses are exploring to do there. Most all of our congregations have participated in it in some way. When I look back, I know we have lowered the assessments consistently over those years so that more money can be left at the local level for you to use for ministry there. Those assessments in that time have moved from 20% to this convention, where we will take up a resolution to lower it yet again to 14.5%. All the while, your leadership has been careful when decreasing the diocesan budget not to decrease funds going back to the congregations through grants and other funding. Over all those years, we've been pretty much able not to cut those. Even more, when I look back at that first convention, we had a non-payment rate of assessments of more than 10%. In successive years, and especially in the last few, we've had the lowest percentage of non-payment in our history, lower than 1%. And at even one brief, shining moment a few years ago, we were at 0% non-payment. It lasted for about 15 minutes. And I actually never thought we would ever hit it. Along with that shift is the new vision adopted last year, which turns the work of the diocese more toward the local and calls us deeper into a reality where we are connected through that work, done where you are, not a focus on becoming something, someone, somewhere has decided you should be. We have shifted the office of bishop to being more an aid and teacher of skills you can use back home, with the power to convene so we can share with one another and learn from one another, instead of a provider of programs that often do not fit, are not culturally appropriate, and do not have room for the very particular context in which you live. It's a shift to helping you lead where you are with the context you've been given, not centralizing solutions. And when I think what is left yet to do, this is a big one. This is among the questions I'm asking now. What is a diocese for today? How should a diocese function in this new world? We have a lot of work to do on that yet. The most recent Bishops' Leadership Conference for me was an incarnation of this shift. For one thing, the response was tremendous. Over 70% of our congregations participated. We actually had people from outside the diocese want to register to attend, which was extremely flattering, and yet we had to tell them this was for those inside the diocese. It's kind of hard to do, actually. We want to be inclusive. The incarnation I refer to is just how connected we seem, how much more willing we are to share our ideas and to learn from one another, and how unthreatening that seems. There's more trust and transparency in our life together. That seems different to me. Our staff was worried enough would come to the Bishops' Leadership Conference, and yet we sold it out, and we had waiting lists. We're planning this again, new and different, but based on the same model in the spring of 2020. That conference also made me believe that we are indeed now much more healthy, focused, and ready to grow spiritually numerically, not accepting decline as our fate, discovering what it is to be the relevant church for this region and at this time. I feel that like I haven't felt it before. This diocese has always been on the forefront of peace and justice issues, and I believe that has been continued and refined and has become more of a collective effort and is more necessary now more than ever. Whether it is speaking out on behalf of and in support of transgender people, or refugees and immigrants for the Me Too movement, marching against gun violence, standing up for the care of creation and our environment, speaking out against mass incarceration, and the misuse of power against people of color, or standing on the side of any who are discriminated against, I say here emphatically, this is not done out of politics. It's done out of theology. It is done out of the vows we make at baptism, and out of the call of the gospel on each of us as people of faith. This is us. This courage is needed now more than ever, and it's also the great connection we have with a world that often sees very little and hears very little from us on these vexing issues that seem to so resonate with our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, the one we say we follow. I believe many in the world are waiting to see us pray, speak, and act in concert with that Jesus. To be his followers in the world, not domesticating his message and life and way for our convenience, but instead living courageously as he lived. We have a lot more to do in all of that. One place is sexual harassment, sexual discrimination, and the systems in the church designed to mitigate any of those. The Me Too movement has brought that to the steps of the church every bit as much as to the steps of all organizations. Much of our General Convention of this past summer focused in this area both legislatively and simply around the edges of that gathering, as well it should. That same attention will need to be paid to it here. And there are many directions being taken, many leaders stepping up here to do it. There is much to do in the realm of healing and reconciliation, and equally in reforming our systems. One such way will come to this convention in resolutions from General Convention, but one will come in a 6-hour resolution. This convention, for various reasons, has a penchant for not taking up 6-hour resolutions. And there's a bit of a tradition that the bishop chairing this convention try to remain as nonpartisan as possible during it. But on my part, I'm going to break that tradition by sharing with you my very real support, my very real encouragement that this 6-hour resolution will be voted on to consider and then voted affirmatively be put in motion. And in turn, I'm asking you to break this convention's tradition of not taking up 6-hour resolutions by taking this one up and voting for it, no matter where we are on Saturday afternoon. It is only one step, but it is a very good one that I support. I hope you will too. There's much to do on this and many more resolutions, policy changes, and more to be done, but we have to start. And I hope we will continue the momentum by passing all of these resolutions. We have witnessed of late our public discourse become mean, hate-filled, and violent. And I think we, this diocese, all of us, have a call now to reveal to the world how to be in civil conversation, to state our truths without regret or apology, but not to be demonizing or belittling. We simply have to model and insist on decency and basic respect. Jesus was not a retiring wallflower. He said tough things, but he always based such things in the solid foundation of the love of God for every one of God's children, even the one he opposed. We must live out of that same place and model the same in our lives. So, this is just a bit of my looking back, the this is us that I can be proud of, and some of the this is us that I believe remains undone. Declaration and indictment. We have to own both. That brings us to now. What do we do with that reflection, that look back? This convention with this theme is a call by myself and the governing bodies for a year of discernment together. As I've reminded you and reminded myself, for that matter, just about every convention we've had in the past several years, we have arrived at the window of time I declared when you elected me bishop, the time I said I would leave this office. To remind those who have not been through it, typically during the process of seeking a new bishop, a diocese goes through the search process, which usually, although we are seeing this change a bit of late, results in a slate of candidates who are presented to the diocese and then asked to come here and to move around the diocese in a model which has been fondly referred to in our church as the walkabouts. I participated in those 11 years ago, traveling all over this diocese and falling in love with it. During those, I vowed that if I were elected, I would most likely leave somewhere around 10 to 12 years, believing that the system needs change, and that I might be bored by then, knowing my inclinations and past experiences as a leader. Now, it's been interesting about the numbers people heard when I said that, or even if they heard it. Some swear they never heard me say it. Some believed I said 5 years. And those who had that faint hope and wish did begin asking me back then, didn't you say you would leave in about 5 years? I've apologized to them over these last 5, realizing for them I've way overstayed my welcome. So last year I brought this up with the governing bodies at our retreat, and I shared that if I were to live up to my vow, it was time to begin the transition. And this incited a bit of stress and conversation, and the thought on both our parts that we seem to be right in the middle of things, perhaps even right at the cusp of some new things happening, some new directions taken, and maybe it was not such a good time for a change. I had to admit to them what I believed this job to be when I was in those walkabouts and made that vow, and what it has turned out to be are very different things. I also had to say, I'm certainly not bored. So out of that uncertainty on their part and mine, we have come to the process I would like to at least initially orient you to today. With some of you, I've shared over the years that I really don't like how we do our search processes for priests or bishops. I liken them a bit to cheating on your spouse. In most cases, we decide it's time to leave, we sneak around finding that next spot and then announce and leave fairly abruptly. It seems contrary to what I believe is a discerning tradition that we are part of. I modeled this in my congregation back when I was discerning the call to be your bishop, having a discernment committee in the congregation, walking with Marty and I as we discerned whether it was time to leave that place, and even whether the call to the office of bishop was right for me. We reported regularly to the whole congregation. And I cannot tell you how difficult that was, and how rich, too. I think everyone involved was a supporter of doing it that way by the time we got to the end of it, as difficult as it could be at times, than to do it the usual way. This belief about our search process is what made me make the vow in the first place. So in some ways, we here are asking you, us, to do the same thing. Instead of doing this as it is normally done, we're going to try something new, discernment together about our future. To very much include if I should be in this future or not. We have researched this a bit and pretty much believe this has not been tried quite like this before. And so we have no experiences to go back on. We are creating this together too. It might be rich and fulfilling, and it might blow up in our face. We hold that up as a possibility too. You are going to hear a lot more about the proposal from your standing committee at this convention, but to put it simply, essentially, you and I are going to discern together the future of this diocese and my future too. We're going to do some of the work of producing a profile of our diocese now, as if we were actually in the typical process whereby the bishop had announced their retirement or resignation and had a date and was now riding off into the sunset, the lame duck waiting to be released. Instead, we're going to try to do that together. Instead of walkabouts, we're going to have in this next year walk-agains. These are literal events which have been planned and for which dates exist, and these will be shared with you by the Standing Committee in our presentation. These 4 events will be held in diverse places around the diocese. I will be present at the beginning of them, doing some of what our theme suggests, looking back and giving my perspective of where we have come from and who we are now. Then I will leave, and you will be together without me to talk about the future you see and to discuss how you think that future should be led and by what kind of leader it should be led. After those events, and very much a part of this process, even though it might seem I'm going to benefit the most from this, I'm going on sabbatical from July 6th to November 5th of next year. As Canon D. Moore reminded me this week, returning just 2 days before this convention meets again. So that convention will be mostly planned by you and the staff, and if you haven't figured it out, it pretty much mostly is already. My sabbatical will focus on the practices of Christianity for our age, with a special look at pilgrimage. My wife and I plan to walk some of the Camino, to make pilgrimage of other kinds, to write, and perhaps even produce a video web-based confirmation and choirs class for our diocese and the rest of the church. But the bulk of it will be about my personal discernment, with all we hear from the work of this year leading up to it, and through the feedback, hopes, and dreams that I hope to hear from you. You at that same time will, without me in the mix, do some discernment too. And then we will come back together. One of the things we will be deciding at this convention next year is whether I stay or whether I go. There's a song. You will have a say in that. I will have a say in that. As I said, it has not been done this way before, and so who knows what it all means. I am convinced, as is your staff, and I believe your governing body leaders are as well, that no matter the outcome, we will grow, and we will learn a great deal about who we are and what we hope to become. In other words, this process will deepen and more fully round out what it means when we say, this is us. That is our hope. Through our collective work of this next year, we hope we will be better prepared to turn, to move forward, using that past, using our assessment of now, using that very full reality that this is us. What looks good and what looks not so good, to move into our future, to make it better, to work and grow ourselves into a better vision, so that we might stand at a place sometime hence and use the same lens, this is us, and see something there. That might include me, it might not. I hope you can trust my discernment on that, as I will trust yours. When we see the remarkable good of our work as Episcopalians in the world, it's good and right to declare this is us. But equally, when we look at the ways we have failed to engage the world, to pay attention, to do what we could do, this also is us. Declaration and indictment. We have to own both. We are all leaders in both. In congregations like St. Luke's Ballard, St. Mark's Cathedral, St. Luke's St. Lucas Vancouver, Christ Church Seattle, St. Dunstan Shoreline, St. Timothy Chehalis, St. Paul's Port Townsend, and countless others, feed and house the homeless. This is us. This is us, not just them, but us. And equally, when the homeless crisis worsens right at all our doorsteps without our response, this is us, too. When ministries like Chaplains on the Harbor and St. James Family Center in Cathlamet and Episcopal Harvest meet the very real needs of the economically depressed areas of our diocese and advocate for the people that suffer the most because of it, this is us. And when we fail to see this in our own neighborhoods, or even in our own church, or shrink at the challenge of addressing the same where we are, this is us also. When our refugee resettlement office and mission seafarers welcome people from all over the world to our land, this is us. We do this together. And when our inclinations in this country seem to be moving to close the borders, to build walls, to curtail our sharing of our abundance with the world, this is us also. When we profess that our God, and therefore our church, is a house of prayer for all people, people of all races, colors, creeds, beliefs, this is us. And when the reality of our gatherings remains some of the whitest and aging, and too often exclusive by our actions, this is us. When our presiding bishop rocks the world with the message that is so needed and so right, that our God is a God of love, and that our way is the way of love, this is us. But when we face the reality that our church is still too often unsafe for children and women, and a place where authority can be misused, and still is, where processes are often more legal than pastoral, where leaders cover up rather than expose, this is us, too. Of course, I could go on, and I hope you will, in your minds and in your hearts and in your discussions, especially over this next year of discernment. Go on with this theme, this analogy, yes, stolen from a TV drama because they knew it was good too. It's not either or, it's both and. We are called to celebrate the good that this faith of ours propels us to do, and to also reckon with the failures to follow it completely, wholly, right? This is us. I have to say, I'm so glad for it. I'm so glad to be part of the us that is us. Whether that goes on for a time or is coming to a close, it has been the richest gift, and I've been blessed by the work and by all of you. My sisters and brothers, I've said these words to you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.